Welcome to Your Daily Dose, a devotion ministry of the Faith Baptist Church of Franklin and Middletown, Ohio. Thanks for joining us each weekday as we share God's Word with you. It's your daily prescription for all that ails you. And now, Your Daily Dose.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Your Daily Dose. Glad that you're here this morning. And as always, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to spend with me as we take a look at what God's Word might be able to reveal to us. And of course, we have to start off with a little story. Normally, I try to make this about Brother Doug, but it doesn't really fit him because he's not quite old enough for this story. But did you hear that, Brother Doug? I said you weren't quite old enough. Yeah. Anyway, an elderly couple one day, as they were celebrating their 60th anniversary. Now, you have to know a little bit of backstory. They had married as childhood sweethearts, and when they finally retired, they had moved back to their old neighborhood. And as they were out celebrating their 60th anniversary, they decided to take a walk, and they walked back to their old school where they went to high school together. Now, the building had long been abandoned, but when they got there, they found that it wasn't locked. So they entered into the building and walked around, reminisced a bit, and they found a desk over in a corner. And it was a desk that they used to share. He had it in one class, she had it in another. And he had carved into the top of that desk, "I love you, Sally." Andy was kind of sentimental like that. But on their way back home, a bag of money fell out of an armored car that was passing by, and it landed practically right on top of their feet. Well, Sally picked it up pretty quickly, but she wasn't really sure what to do with it, so they decided to take it home. When they got home, she counted the money. There was $50,000 in the bag. Andy said, "You know what, Sally, we got to give that back." Sally said, "Forget that, finders keepers." She took the money, put it back in the bag, and went and hid it upstairs in the attic. The next day, there was a knock at their door, and both Sally and Andy went to the door and found two FBI agents standing there. And the FBI agent, one of them looked at them and said, "Pardon me, but did either of you find a bag that fell out of an armored car yesterday?" Sally said, "No." Andy said, "She's lying. She hid it up in the attic." Sally said, "Don't believe him. He's getting senile." Well, when they heard that, the agents turned to Andy and began to question him. And one of them said, "Look, just tell us the story from the beginning." And Andy said, "Well, when Sally and I were walking home from school yesterday, and at that point, the FBI agents threw their hands up in the air and said, 'We're out of here.'" Some of you will get that. Some of you won't. Some of you will get it on Sunday when you see me and you'll be like, "It took me a while to get that joke." But in any case, I always like to tell you where these daily doses come from. So here's where this one came from. It came from Pastor's Sunday morning sermon. Now, don't think I'm going to re-preach his sermon, because I'm not. But if you remember, the title of his sermon was "Get Lost." Now, that's not the context in which it was preached, but today I want to take a look at Psalm 40. And I've said it before here on Your Daily Dose, because we've been in that passage before. That is probably my favorite psalm. David wrote there, "I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined unto me," it's verse 1, "and he heard my cry. He brought me up also out of an horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my goings. And he hath put a new song in my mouth, even praise unto our God. Many shall see it, and fear, and shall trust in the Lord. Blessed is that man that maketh the Lord his trust, and respecteth not the proud, nor such as turn aside to lies." One of the reasons that I like this psalm so much is that often we as Christians make some interesting statements. I heard someone the other day make a statement. He said, "Well, when I came to Jesus," I hear people occasionally say, "Well, when I got right and I came to God." Well, you know what? That's not an accurate statement. My old friend Squire Parsons wrote a song years ago called "He Came to Me." And, the whole point of the song is that I could not come to him. Thankfully, he came to me. And thank God that he did, because what David tells us in this passage is that we can't go to him. So let's take a look. First, something I find interesting here is that he raises us. David says in verse 2 that God brought him up out of a horrible pit. You know, we don't like to admit it. But the truth be told, we were in really bad shape before God found us. David says that we were in a horrible pit. Now, I don't think the words that the translators used were selected, just coincidentally. I believe it was that, I don't believe in double inspiration, but I do believe that the King James is the most accurate translation that's out there, and I believe that the translators chose specific words to make sure that the original message was conveyed. And I like the use of the word pit, because by definition, a pit isn't just a hole or isn't just, something you fell in. No, a pit, yes, it's a hole, but by definition, it's a hole in which you cannot get out under your own strength. See, the truth is that our sin had found us trapped. We were trapped in a pit. We couldn't get out. But thank God that He hears us. David says He inclined His ear to him. You know what that means? That means is that He found us and He raised us up out of that horrible pit. Not only does He raise me, see, He rescues me. Sure, He got me out of the pit and out of the miry clay. Another couple words that are interesting that's used. You know, the word miry isn't exactly one that we use in our modern vernacular very often, if ever, but how appropriate. So, what exactly is miry clay? Well, it's muddy, it's messy. The dictionary actually says it's boggy. Now, I would say that it's worse than being in a swamp. And I know what boggy waters are. I mean, I did live in Louisiana, I navigated the bayous a time or two, but it wasn't boggy like water, it was boggy like clay. Imagine your feet being stuck in boggy, muddy clay at the bottom of a pit. Boy, it just adds insult to injury, but you know what? That's how bad off we were. Not only were we stuck in that pit, our feet were bogged down in that muddy, miry mess of clay. We were stuck in our sin. We were stuck in our stubbornness and our spurning of His saving grace. So He raises me, He rescues me. And one of the things I like here is that David doesn't just say He raised me, rescued me. He keeps on going and says He restarts us as well. See, He came to me. He took my hand. He brought me up out of the pit. He freed me from that miry clay. But then David says He set His feet on the rock. You gotta love that. He set me on the rock. Anybody who knows the story of the three little pigs can tell you, if you build your house out of rock, what happens? Well, that old wolf can't come over there and blow that one down. Why is that? Rock doesn't crumble. Rock doesn't collapse. Rock doesn't change. All the ways of this world one day will do all of those things. I'm glad He set me on the rock. And David doesn't stop there. David acknowledges that He set him on the rock, but then David says He established my goings. And I think this is the hard part for most Christians. And it's easy because we live in the world. We live in the modern world today, and we tend to be just like the world, and that we get so focused on our careers. We get so focused on the paycheck. We get focused on having the bigger and best of this and that. We are so focused on what the material world calls success. But you see, when we got saved, He established our goings. A friend of mine one time, we were doing some Bible study together, and he said, looking at our church, it wasn't Faith Baptist Church we're at, it was a different church, but he was like, there's some people here who, I mean, they seem so successful, but I never really hear them witness. I never hear them share their burdens. I never see them giving anything. Half the time they don't even come to church, but they look really successful on the outside. He said, why is that? And the only way that I could answer it was to go right here to Psalm 40. I think it's because we're all so happy and we're thrilled to be raised out of the pit. We're ecstatic about being rescued from the miry clay. But that restart part, well, that we've all got better things to do. If there's any encouragement that I find here in Psalm 40, it's that one, it's our job to share with others that we have been raised. It's our job to live a life that shows that we've been rescued out of that miry clay. And lastly, that we have a new job. We should be singing that new song of praise to God for his mighty works, that we should rest in him. As David said, we should make him our trust, not the earthly things that shall pass away, because we have been restarted. Kind of like, goes alongside the term being reborn, as we are when we become Christians. There's nothing quite like found money. Go back to our opening story there. Boy, Sally sure wanted to hide that money in the attic, and I don't blame her, because there's nothing quite like found money. Money you didn't have to work for, money that you didn't earn, that you couldn't earn. And to God, you know what? There's nothing like his found children that he raised, that he rescued, that he restarted. What a great picture David gives us here. And I hope that was a blessing to you. Look forward to seeing you in God's house Sunday morning, bright and early. And men, if you're listening to this, don't forget, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. is our prayer, breakfast, and Bible study. Encourage you to be there. There will be bacon. God bless you. Have a blessed day in the Lord.
This has been your Daily Dose, a ministry of Faith Baptist Church. Subscribe to our YouTube channel today and click the bell next to the button to sign up for email notifications each time we live stream or release a new video. To learn more about faith, please visit our website, fitinatfaith.com, for more information about our church. Have a great day in the Lord.